January 3rd, 2026, 2:47 a.m., Caracas, Venezuela. 4 Black Hawk helicopters descend on the presidential compound. Operation Libertad, 18 months in planning, is about to change Latin American history forever. U.S. Special Forces, Delta and SEAL Team 6 breached the outer perimeter. Their target? Nicolás Maduro Moros, President of Venezuela, wanted by the United States on charges of narco-terrorism. They find him in his bedroom. With him, his wife, Cilia Flores, herself facing U.S. drug trafficking charges. Neither resists. The Venezuelan military, ordered to stand down, does not intervene. Within 12 minutes of the breach, both are zip-tied and heading to the extraction point. By dawn, they'll be in U.S. custody. But the question remains, was this justice or an act of war? The helicopters disappear into Venezuelan airspace, heading north. Destination? United States. Charge: narco-terrorism and drug trafficking conspiracy. By 6 a.m., the world knows. The headlines scream. The reactions are instant and divided. Celebrations in Miami, outrage in Moscow. The UN calls it illegal. Trump calls it long overdue. Venezuela calls it an invasion. But who is Nicolás Maduro, and what did he do to warrant this operation that some call justice and others call a crime? This is his story, the allegations, the evidence, the defense, and the operation that ended his rule. Born November 23, 1962, Caracas. A bus driver, a union organizer, a man of the people, or so he claimed. Hugo Chávez's protégé, foreign minister. Then, in 2013, president. He promised to continue Chávez's revolution. What he delivered was something else entirely. Under Maduro's rule, Venezuela, once South America's richest nation, collapsed. Hyperinflation, food shortages, 6 million fled. But the economic collapse was just the beginning. What came next would put him on the U.S. Most Wanted list. March 26, 2020. The U.S. Department of Justice unseals an indictment. The charges? Narco-terrorism, conspiracy to import cocaine, weapons offenses. The accused? Nicolás Maduro. The allegation: Maduro didn't just allow drug trafficking through Venezuela. He actively participated. His government became what prosecutors called a narco-state. At the center, Cartel de los Soles, the Cartel of the Suns, named for the sun insignias on Venezuelan generals' uniforms. Military officers allegedly turning Venezuela's armed forces into a criminal enterprise. The numbers the U.S. alleges: over 250 metric tons of cocaine, billions of dollars, thousands of flights, destined for American cities. U.S. prosecutors allege Maduro provided safe haven to FARC guerrillas, designated terrorists by the U.S., using Venezuelan territory as a cocaine superhighway. Not acting alone. Diosdado Cabello, Maduro's right hand, former military officer, Minister of Interior, also indicted, also carrying a $15 million bounty. The evidence the U.S. presents: intercepted communications, financial records, testimony from cooperating witnesses, flight manifests, bank transfers. Maduro's response? Total denial. Lies fabricated by the U.S. empire, he said. A coup attempt disguised as justice. Venezuela's government calls it political persecution. They want our oil, they claim. They want regime change. The drug charges are a pretext. International legal scholars are divided. Some say the charges are legitimate. Others question whether capturing a sitting president violates international law. The U.S. says, these aren't just charges on paper. These are American lives lost to cocaine allegedly trafficked through Venezuela. Families destroyed, communities ravaged. Venezuela says, look at our people, suffering under U.S. sanctions. Economic warfare, they call it. Who's the real criminal? The sanctions are real. The economic collapse is real. But the causation? Disputed. Is Maduro a victim of U.S. aggression? Or did his corruption destroy Venezuela first? What's not disputed? The human rights record. The UN documents extrajudicial killings, torture, forced disappearances. Thousands detained, hundreds dead in protests. Opposition leaders jailed. Journalists silenced. Activists disappeared. Critics called these crimes against humanity. Maduro called it maintaining order. 2018. Maduro wins re-election. The opposition and dozens of countries call it fraudulent. Juan Guaidó declares himself president. Venezuela has two presidents. The world chooses sides. 60 countries recognize Guaidó. Russia, China, and Cuba back Maduro. Venezuela becomes a proxy for great power competition. The Cold War never really ended. Multiple coup attempts fail, including a bizarre 2020 operation involving American mercenaries captured on a beach. Maduro survives them all. Until now. Why does Maduro matter so much? Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. It's a foothold for Russia and China in America's hemisphere. This isn't just about drugs. President Trump made Maduro a personal target. Maximum pressure, he called it. Sanctions, indictments, and now this. The operation Trump claimed Biden wouldn't do. Whatever the legality, the operation was already in motion. Langley, Virginia, CIA headquarters, 18 months before the raid. A small team begins planning what they're calling the most sensitive operation since bin Laden. Satellites track his movements. Signals intelligence intercepts his communications. Human sources inside Venezuela feed information. Every detail of Maduro's life is cataloged. The target, Miraflores Palace and his residence at La Casona. 24-hour security, Venezuelan military protection, multiple escape routes, heavily fortified. The team, America's most elite operators, Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, men who've done missions like this before, but never against a head of state in power. Presidential authorization required. Trump reportedly gave it personally. The legal justification, he's an indicted fugitive. The reality, this is regime change. The breakthrough, an insider. A Venezuelan military officer, identity still classified. He provides the crucial intelligence, Maduro's security routines, his vulnerabilities. 18 months of planning, hundreds of personnel, billions in resources. It all comes down to one night, January 3rd, 2026. 2 a.m. The helicopters lift off from a classified location. Destination, Caracas. Mission, capture Maduro. Rules of engagement, use force if necessary. 47 minutes to target. The operators are silent. Some pray, some check equipment. All know what's at stake. They enter Venezuelan airspace, flying low, using terrain to mask their approach. Venezuelan air defenses don't respond. Were they disabled, bribed, or ordered to stand down? Later, questions will emerge. Did elements of the Venezuelan military cooperate? Was Maduro betrayed by his own generals? Or did they simply refuse to die for him? Later, questions will emerge. Did elements of the Venezuelan military cooperate? Was Maduro betrayed by his own generals? Or did they simply refuse to die for him? Final checks, weapons hot, night vision down, 30 seconds to insertion. This is it. Fast ropes deploy. Operators hit the ground. Formation, perfect. Resistance, none. They move toward the breach, flashbangs, room clearing, textbook. 12 years of training condensed into 12 seconds of perfect execution. Target acquired. Maduro offers no resistance. Neither does Flores. Zip-tied, secured. 12 minutes after insertion, it's over. And just like that. By dawn, they're gone. Venezuela wakes to find its president missing. The helicopters disappear over the Caribbean. Destination, U.S. custody. Caracas wakes to chaos, state media initially silent, then frantic. The streets fill, some celebrating, some in shock, many just confused. Caracas wakes to chaos, state media initially silent, then frantic. The streets fill, some celebrating, some in shock, many just confused. In Miami, where hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan exiles live, the celebration is massive. Tears of joy, years of waiting. Finally, they say, justice.
January 3rd, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, Maduro lands on U.S. soil, not as a head of state, as an accused criminal. His first appearance, federal court, orange jumpsuit, shackles. The charges are red: narco-terrorism, drug trafficking conspiracy, weapons charges. His plea, not guilty. His defense team calls it political persecution and international law violation. They demand immediate release. The judge's ruling, held without bail, flight risk, danger to the community. Maduro will await trial in federal custody. The former president goes to prison. In Caracas, the government denounces it as an act of war. Diosdado Cabello, Maduro's second-in-command, assumes power. He vows Venezuela will never bow to the empire. The region destabilizes, border tensions spike, oil prices fluctuate, migration could increase. Colombia, Brazil, and Guyana brace for spillover. Russia issues a stark warning. This sets a dangerous precedent. Moscow reminds Washington that Russia still has military assets in Venezuela. China, Venezuela's largest creditor, calls it illegal. Beijing has $60 billion invested in Venezuela. This isn't just about Maduro, it's about whether the U.S. can unilaterally remove leaders who oppose it. Maduro's defense team assembles. Top international lawyers argue this violates the Vienna Convention, sovereign immunity, and sets a terrifying precedent for any leader who opposes Washington. America itself is divided. Republicans largely support it. Democrats largely oppose it. The split is stark. 65% of Republicans approve. Only 11% of Democrats do. Comparisons immediately arise. Manuel Noriega, 1989, also a drug trafficking dictator, also captured by U.S. forces. The operation worked, but at what cost? Panama, 1989. Hundreds of civilians died. International condemnation rained down. But Noriega did spend 17 years in U.S. prison. Was it worth it? Depends who you ask. Perhaps most mysterious, the Venezuelan military does nothing. No rescue attempt, no retaliation. Did they betray Maduro, or did they simply choose survival over loyalty? Audio specs. Cilia Flores faces her own charges. Once Venezuela's First Lady and National Assembly President, now federal prisoner number 26,847. Her nephew already serving 18 years for drug trafficking. The trial is months away, maybe years. The legal battle will be historic. The evidence, massive. The stakes, unprecedented. A former head of state on trial for narco-terrorism. The Venezuelan people? Divided. Some celebrate liberation, others see invasion, most are just exhausted. 20 years of crisis and still no clear end. Venezuela's democratic opposition faces a dilemma. They wanted Maduro gone, but not like this. U.S. military intervention undermines their legitimacy. We should have done this ourselves, they say. Venezuela now stands at a crossroads. Will there be new elections? Will the regime hold? Will this spark civil conflict or regional crisis? Nobody knows. The precedent terrifies many. If America can capture Venezuela's president, what stops China from doing the same to Taiwan's? Or Russia to Ukraine's? The rules just changed. Here's what we don't know yet: the full evidence. Much is classified. The trial will reveal whether the U.S. case is ironclad or whether this was regime change dressed as justice. And Nicolás Maduro sits in a federal cell, awaiting trial, awaiting history's judgment. So who's right? Is this justice for drug trafficking, or is this regime change? Is Maduro a criminal who deserved capture, or a sovereign leader who was kidnapped? The prosecution argues this is about drugs, about cocaine flooding American streets, about a narco-state that needed to be dismantled. The evidence, they say, speaks for itself. The defense counters, this violates international law, violates sovereignty, sets a dangerous precedent. And ask yourself, if the evidence was so strong, why not extradition? Why a military raid? Context matters. The Trump administration tried for years to remove Maduro. Sanctions, coups, recognition of opposition. This wasn't just about drugs, it was regime change that finally worked. And then there's oil. Venezuela has the world's largest proven reserves. China and Russia have been taking that oil. Now, with Maduro gone, who controls it? Here's what's undeniable. Under Maduro, Venezuela collapsed. 6 million fled, children starved, the elderly died without medicine. Whether he trafficked drugs or not, his governance destroyed a nation. But critics ask, did Maduro destroy Venezuela, or did U.S. sanctions? The economy collapsed further after sanctions. Children died because medicine couldn't be imported. Who's responsible? American families who lost children to cocaine overdoses say, justice. Finally, this man facilitated poison coming into our communities. He deserves this. Venezuelan families who lost children to Maduro's repression say, justice. Finally, this man tortured, killed, disappeared our loved ones. He deserves this. International law experts worldwide ask, can one nation unilaterally arrest another nation's leader? The UN Charter says no. But what if that leader is committing crimes against humanity? Critics point out the International Criminal Court exists for cases like this, but the U.S. doesn't recognize its jurisdiction, so America becomes judge, jury, and arresting officer. America has 800 military bases worldwide, has intervened in Latin America dozens of times. When critics call this imperialism, they're not inventing that concern. The history is real. But here's also true. Maduro rigged elections, jailed opponents, destroyed Venezuela's democracy. Whatever sovereignty he claims, he violated his people's sovereignty first. Here's the truth. It's complicated. Maduro likely did traffic drugs. He definitely destroyed democracy. America definitely violated international law. Victims exist on all sides. The trial will matter. The evidence will become public. We'll finally see, is the U.S. case ironclad, or was this geopolitics disguised as law enforcement? Meanwhile, Venezuela remains in crisis. Maduro's capture didn't fix the economy, didn't feed the hungry, didn't heal the broken. The work of rebuilding has barely begun. Across Latin America, leaders wonder, are they next? Nicaragua's Ortega? Cuba's leadership? Anyone who defies Washington? The message has been sent. In America, it's already politics. Trump claims victory. Democrats cry foul, moderates are divided, and 2026 midterms are coming. Even this becomes a campaign issue. Maduro's likely fate? If convicted, life in a U.S. federal prison. He'd be 62 now, probably dying behind bars, unless there's a political deal or unless he wins at trial. Cilia Flores faces her own trial, her own potential life sentence. The couple who ruled Venezuela together may spend their final years in separate federal prisons. History will judge this operation, but history's judgment depends on what happens next. Does Venezuela become democratic, or does it descend into chaos? The story's not over. So was this right or wrong, just or unjust? The answer is yes, both. It depends on which principles you prioritize, and reasonable people disagree. The drug war has raged for 50 years. Billions spent, millions incarcerated, cartels still thrive. Will Maduro's capture change that, or is this just one more headline in an endless war? Who benefits? Trump's political base? U.S. oil interests? Venezuelan exiles? The Venezuelan people? All of the above? Motives are never pure in geopolitics.
The precedent is dangerous. If militarily powerful countries can just capture leaders they don't like, international order collapses. Might makes right, again. Can Maduro get a fair trial in the U.S. after Trump's rhetoric, after the military raid? Can any jury be impartial? The American justice system's credibility is being tested. In all this geopolitical chess, remember, real people suffered. American families lost children to cocaine. Venezuelan families lost children to bullets. Their pain is real, whatever the politics. This story is being documented from every angle. Journalists, historians, filmmakers. Years from now, we'll still be debating what really happened and why. Even Maduro is human. A bus driver who rose to power. A man who believed in something once. Somewhere along the way, something went wrong. Or maybe it was wrong from the start. Power corrupts. It's the oldest story. Revolutionaries become dictators. Liberators become oppressors. Chavez promised to help the poor. Maduro let them starve. How does that happen? The international system failed. Diplomacy failed. Sanctions failed. Elections were rigged. What was left? Military force. Is that failure of the system, or proof the system needs enforcement?
6 million Venezuelans live in exile. They watch from Miami, from Bogota, from Madrid. They can't go home. They wonder, will this change anything? Can they ever return? An entire generation of Venezuelan children grew up in this crisis, some starving in Caracas, others raised as refugees in foreign lands. What future do they have? What Venezuela will they inherit? The oil remains, world's largest reserves. Whether Maduro is guilty or innocent, whether this was justice or imperialism, that oil is still there, still valuable, still contested, still the real prize. Questions remain. Who inside Venezuela cooperated? What evidence is still classified? What diplomatic deals happened behind closed doors? Some answers may never come. Even the story itself is contested. Watch Fox News, American heroes bringing a narco-terrorist to justice. Watch other sources, illegal invasion. Same facts, different stories. Welcome to 2026. Here's the hardest part. The facts exist. The evidence is real. But the meaning, the interpretation, that depends on your perspective. And your perspective depends on your interests.
People made choices. American operators risked death. Venezuelan soldiers chose sides. Families were torn apart. Beyond the politics, real humans faced real consequences. January 3rd, 2026 will be in history books. Children decades from now will study this. The question is, what will the textbooks say? Hero story? Cautionary tale? Both? What would you do if you were president with evidence of drug trafficking killing Americans? If you were Venezuelan watching your nation destroyed? If you championed international law? Easy to judge, harder to choose. The trial will be the reckoning. All the evidence public, all the arguments aired. 12 Americans will decide. Not politicians, not generals, a jury. That's the system, for better or worse. Maduro's capture is not the end of Venezuela's story. It's maybe the end of one chapter. What comes next determines whether this was worth it, whether anyone benefited, whether justice was served. The world order shifts. If America can do this, others will try. Rules-based order or might makes right? We're finding out in real time. And the implications extend far beyond Venezuela. The moral ledger is complex. Maduro likely committed crimes. America likely violated international law. Venezuelans suffered. Americans suffered. Justice is served and violated simultaneously. Somehow, both are true. Nicolás Maduro sits in his cell. What does he think about? Does he feel guilt? Rage? Resignation? We can't know. Despite everything, his inner life remains his own. Human mystery persists. Do the victims feel justice? Some do. The American mother who lost her son to cocaine. Finally. The Venezuelan mother who lost hers to bullets. It doesn't bring him back. Justice is personal. This story isn't over. The trial is months away. Venezuela's future is uncertain. New evidence will emerge. Perspectives will shift. We're living through history, not reading about it. So we return to where we started. 4 helicopters, 1 operation, and the question, was this justice? The answer depends on which justice you mean, and whose. History will decide what January 3rd, 2026 really meant. We're just living through it.